Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Side Draft Media. Boy, do we have a lot to unpack from Brickyard this Sunday. Just an amazing event. A little controversial on the ending, but we're definitely going to get to that. Right off the bat, I wanted to take a moment to thank another podcast that discusses all forms of racing. My guys over at Motor Racing Podcast. They got a good little show going on over there. I was able to join them for a few months, and they invited me to be a part of their team. And I really wanted to express my appreciation for them and them teaching me everything that I've learned up to this point about podcasting and auto racing. All them boys over there, I really appreciate you guys. I just wanted to give you all that shout out just because y'all are great people, and I'm really, really appreciative of everything that y'all showed me. So thank you guys. If y'all are listening, check out their podcast if you get a chance. They cover all forms of racing from Indy, Formula One, NASCAR, trucks, Xfinity, all the way across the board. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Ryan, buddy, how the heck are you doing? How was your Monday, man?
Oh, well, it was a Monday.
Oh yeah.
Um, I digesting everything that took place yesterday in the race and really had a good weekend of racing. Just trying to put that get the pulse from the NASCAR community on how everybody was feeling this morning, regarding the outcome of yesterday's race. I know for one, I feel some sort of way about it. I think you share in some of the same sentiment, and but here we are to talk about it. So let's talk about it.
Let's get
Um,
after it, man.
yeah,
Right off the bat, stage one, really quiet stage. It really played out like a lot of the bigger tracks would. Everybody kind of taking care of their stuff, everybody minding their P's and Q's. Nobody really roughing anybody up. Everybody just kind of getting through stage one cleanly, figuring out what your tires are going to do, figuring out what your fuel's going to do. And then we get into stage two and things start picking up a little bit. Overall, as an overall race, what did you think of the Brickyard 400 yesterday?
well, I was happy to see it back on the oval. That is a crown jewel event, and those cars just look great going around that track, in my opinion. Um, I do believe that at times it looks like there could be some struggling on as far as the cup side of things with passing. Maybe NASCAR needs to explore next year something a little bit different to allow for maybe, you know, a little bit more passing, because the Xfinity cars seem to be able to ride behind each other and go around. And a lot of the time, I feel like we talk when there's tracks where the Cup cars may struggle with passing. You rewind to Saturday, and if the Xfinity cars were on the same track, they maybe did not share in some of those same issues, and that's completely different car. So I think NASCAR can maybe explore around, but overall, I was happy with being back on the oval, and getting a crown jewel event back for the sport that I personally missed. And I just there's so much prestige at Indy, and then when you take the oval track away and you run the race on the road course, it's just not the same luster to it. So
Right, and that road course is strictly was designed for the Indy cars. I mean, the way those corners get so narrow, there was nobody was wondering why all these Cup cars couldn't fit in there at the exact same time, and half of them were getting run off the road. And when you watch Indy, they go in two by two and they figure it out. NASCAR's a little bit different of an animal where all these guys are going to shove it in as hard as they can, and that just didn't line up with the way the Indy road course was built and designed. Hats off to
yeah,
NASCAR for trying something new. The Brickyard was getting a little stagnant during Indy weekend. The crowds were not showing up because the racing quality wasn't as good. As we fast forward to 2024 and you get it back on the oval, it really seemed like the racing quality overall was a lot better. The fuel strategy thing, I think, is going to hurt NASCAR in the long run. I think they would benefit from finding a tire package that actually wears out quicker than the fuel tank. That way, we're not strictly running a fuel mileage race. And it got to a point where sometimes it was confusing, where even the announcers on NBC were like, "Well, you're not technically watching these guys up front. You're watching sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and 10th. Those are going to be your guys." And it's like, that's going to be confusing to new fans because they're like, well, the guys up front are leading the race. Why are we, what? That's not going to make a lot of sense to fans. So I think it's important for NASCAR and Goodyear to figure out a way to line up their tire wear to be just shorter than the fuel run. That way we're not slowing these cars down that have the capability. They probably have the capability to go all balls to the wall, for lack of better terms, and put on a really good racing show. We see it during the restarts where the guys aren't holding back and they're all able to pass and get around each other like pretty decently easy. It's during the fuel saving mode where everybody just gets locked into place and just kind of freight training around for a while.
Right.
What are your thoughts as far as NASCAR adjusting horsepower or making adjustments to the tires again? I know that's something that we bring up a lot is the tire wear. Is Goodyear putting out too good of a tire to where it's affecting the quality of the race that we could be getting?
Yeah, I think so. That is the case, I believe, in certain instances. I know, it looked to be a slick track, but at the same time, the tire wear, the fall off on those tires, and I know we talked about this last episode. In certain situations, you need more of that tire fall off, and I believe NASCAR will definitely look into something. And they're already exploring tire packages. We're going to have a lot to uncover as we prepare for Richmond race, but with what they're going to do, and I know we probably have a huge segment on that, and I look forward to doing that. But yeah, I think something's got to change. I know some of the drivers, when you read through and look at the end of the race, some of the drivers were saying, I do believe Denny Hamlin was one outspoken about not being able to pass. So they got to figure something out. And why are the Xfinity cars able to do it and not the Cup cars? Because the Xfinity cars are really putting on a good show in that department, whereas on some of these tracks where the Cup guys struggle to, put on a passing clinic like the Xfinity guys. We saw the end of the race got really exciting in the on Saturday versus a disaster of a finish for NASCAR on Sunday. So I would have liked to seen that finish out under green NASCAR, but I know I'm not alone there either. But yeah, I would love to see something with the tires change. I think that's one of the simple ways they can try something. I know there's been talks through the garage areas, and you've heard drivers like this week's winner, Kyle Larson, has even said in conversations they've had with their teams that they could increase the horsepower this week if they wanted to. Now, I don't know if they theoretically, could do it in a 7-day turnaround, but the engine builders have the capabilities to make quick changes to give those cars more horsepower if NASCAR said green light, do it. So, some of the fans are screaming for that. We want more horsepower back. But I do believe it's going to be a mix of a few things. And so as long as NASCAR is willing to try something, I, as a consumer of the sport, and, will be happy with that. Don't go into it expecting different results without changing anything. Gotta bring something to the table. So hopefully they look into that.
And that's something I really hope they're able to figure out, not only from a fan aspect, but from a racer's aspect. When you've got multiple drivers saying you can't pass. Now, I remember the Gen 6 car. This is before the next gen. They started racing that in 2022. The Gen 6 Cup car reminded me a lot of the Xfinity car. Now, I know that NASCAR created this next gen because they really wanted to separate Cup and Xfinity. There was a lot of talk in 18, 19, and 20 of people saying we can't even tell the difference in the series anymore. One, because some of the Cup guys go to Xfinity and drive those cars every weekend. And two, because the cars look and handle so similar, it was borderline like we had 2 Cup series or 2 Xfinity series running on the weekends. I think that's one of the things that prompted NASCAR to make the next gen so much different, not only handling, but look different than the Xfinity car, so that they were actually putting out 2 different classes for fans to enjoy. When we started unpacking the next gen car, of course, if you're familiar, they've got those giant plates, those skid plates on the bottom of the car that lead into the rear diffuser. and it's supposed to
Right.
help the downforce, and it's supposed to help the stability of these cars. What happened was it affected the ability of the cars around you, because when these guys are racing against each other, they were learning that they could manipulate the air so well around each other. And we saw great examples of that in Xfinity, in the way Riley Hurbst was manipulating his line and getting, Cole Custer out of shape. You watched him kind of wiggle up the track, and Riley was able to drive up underneath him. With the Cup car, you don't get that as much, and you end up getting where, if you are able to get to the back bumper of some of these next gen cars, you're borderline having to push them out of the way. And we've seen that multiple times, whereas you're not able to, I don't want to say move a guy, but you're technically moving them, because you're able to manipulate the air off the rear of their spoiler. It's getting them wiggling out of the way. We just don't see it with the next gen car.
Yeah,
Did
the aero loose you kind of create when doing
Right.
that. Yeah.
So did NASCAR create too good of a race car, in a sense to where it actually ended up bad, if that makes sense? Like they created a car that is able to handle very well, but so bad to where they're not able to manipulate each other the way they were in the Gen 6 era.
Well, they also gave the drivers a little bit more tools with this car too. They have that new uh, camera in the car,
Right.
so when other drivers are getting a run on them, not only are they able to rely on the good old eyes in the sky, their spotter information, but now they're able to take a glance down at that camera, and they're getting really good feedback from that to be able to, dare I say, block or kind of manipulate and change the lanes and how the air is going to hit that car behind them, so it kind of kill that car's forward momentum,
And
and
what they were calling
take
it
take
is
away those
aero.
passing opportunities.
Right.
Aero
What they were
blocking.
calling it is aero blocking, where the leader actually does have the advantage. He can take the wake of the air that he's creating and use
Mhm.
it to his advantage to block the guy that's trying to pass him. It's another strategic thing that these guys have figured out, and now NASCAR has to react, because it's really affecting the outcome of some of these races, where the strongest car probably doesn't always win, just because a guy was able to manipulate the air in front of him. And it's I wouldn't say it's affecting the integrity of the race, but it's definitely affecting it to a fault. Would that be fair to
Uh,
say?
yeah, I think that's fair to say, because the word clean air is not new to NASCAR.
Right.
Clean air has always mattered,
Right.
always mattered. So,
It's like gold to
um,
these guys.
yeah. So, I mean, if you get out front, you're getting that clean air over your car, and that's not a new term. They're just learning a new way to manipulate that air, how it's coming off the back of the vehicle and hitting the one that's it's killing the forward momentum of the car behind them. And
Right.
if it's been talked about weeks ago when there were blocking issues here and there at various tracks, people talked about these cameras. So if it's really that big an issue, turn it off. You have spotters for a reason, so turn off the
Right.
camera then. Let's trial and error with the little things that you already have, but don't do too many things at once, because if turning off the camera works, great. If changing the tires works, great. But like let's not do too many things at once and hit the panic button, because I don't think overall we have a bad product, because I still saw some good racing. And
Absolutely.
strategy races are fun. Now, I'll agree with what you made a comment about early on in the race, and how the commentators were talking about, well, these are your guys to watch right here in the middle of the pack because of the strategy they're on. Um, and whereas some guys, the first stage was what, 50 laps, I think, and some of the drivers came in right around lap 25.
Right.
Whereas Tyler Reddick was out front. I don't think he came in until lap 32.
38, I
So,
think, was his mark.
or something like that. So,
Right.
obviously, right then off the bat, completely changes the entire race from
Right.
here forward. And if you're not paying attention, it can get very confusing. Fortunately, I watched the race with my earbuds in, and I'm listening to team communications on various drivers I like to listen to, just so I can make sure I kind of get some insider knowledge on what's going on, because if you're just sitting and watching at home, you can get a little lost, especially if you're newer to the sport. So I would
Right.
like there to be a little bit of a clearer picture, for everybody.
A little
But
transparency for some of the new
mhm.
fans that are trying to enjoy the sport.
Yeah, but I mean, but strategy racing has always been around too. So I mean, but yeah, if you do something to where I feel like you could have ran those tires obviously even longer than Tyler Reddick did. He stayed out a long time, but how much, even with a little bit of fall off, it could eat up. When a guy's out there on fresh tires making laps quicker than you, their pace is better. That plays into the strategy too. Is where is the risk reward cutoff on how much time am I going to lose to those guys when it cycles back around? And eventually it did, and Tyler Reddick was not the leader anymore
Right.
because he stayed out too long.
Right.
So the new tires did matter. They made a bit of difference. It wasn't so drastic to where a guy dips onto pit road, everybody follows him the lap after, but and there are tracks where it's like that as well. But
Yeah, you will see the follow the leader. Once that first guy comes
yeah,
in, everybody else is like, we can't risk it. We need to come in and match the energy.
right. But they're on fuel strategy, not a tire strategy type of race. So
Right.
it just the way that race played out, your winner, Kyle Larson, there was a point where I thought maybe he was dead to rights because strategy things and how the cautions broke, and various drivers, whether through penalties or whatever, they were able to recover because of changes in strategy, which also makes it exciting because, I know the RFK guys, man, it seemed like they had a really bad lap. You had Busher having his issue, looking like he's blowing up, and then the six gets nailed for a penalty, and later on, the six is leading the race. Now,
Right.
obviously, he was going to run out of fuel and knew it, but he was trying the strategy. But he was back out there for a while
Yep.
in the front. So the that's the great part about having all those laps to work with and manipulate how your race is going to go, and um, try to rebound and salvage a decent day out of
Absolutely.
penalty. I know Chase Elliott was penalized too, and man, was he hot
He was
because
a very, very unhappy
yeah,
driver in that car.
yeah, the entering the race surface too soon and trying to say that it wasn't very clear, and NASCAR didn't make it very clear where they were able to brush up under that line or not, even though he was trying to stay in the warm up lane, but he just went too high, went
I mean,
too
the video evidence did show all four of his tires
yeah,
crossing the second white line, which is the racing surface, and we saw Denny Hamlin go by on that racing surface. So the penalty
right,
was clear as day. I don't think Chase was as um, informed on the exit of pit road as he could have been, and I think he needed somebody to take that out on. And he probably has watched it a couple times since then, and is probably like, all right, well,
yeah,
I did
I
this,
messed up,
so.
yeah, right,
Right.
right,
In the
yeah,
heat of the moment, when you're sitting in the cockpit of these race cars, you don't always see everything the same way. Most of the time, the fans and the broadcasters have aerial eye views of everything that's going on and unlimited displays. These drivers don't have that capability, so their vision is only what they see at that moment. And I'll get to Ryan Blaney because he's a very passionate person on the radio when things aren't going 100%. You know what I mean? So. Um, yeah, so you brought up Chase Elliott and his pass through penalty, or yeah, he had a pass through penalty. Brad Keselowski gets his early penalty, ends up coming back to lead some of the race. We get a caution. Only reason I'm bringing up this caution on lap 69 for the 15 of Cody Ware, because it's going to be important to see how quick NASCAR threw a caution for this tire that rolled into the grass, this tire carcass that rolled into the grass. And I know there were pieces of rubber that bounced, but it was still out of the racing groove. They throw the caution immediately. They get it cleaned up, get everybody stacked back up, turn them loose again. Okay, that was that caution. Nothing crazy.
right.
Um,
Debris on
Bubba
the track
Wallace,
though.
right? Debris on the track. Bubba
Yep.
Wallace wins stage 2. Joey Logano goes ahead and flips everything and flips stage 2 for track position. Doesn't pay out for him. Obviously, he ends up in a wreck. That was actually, and this is nothing against Joey Logano or his fans, but that was on Ryan Blaney, if I remember correctly. He actually came down across the nose of Carson Hocevar. We also need to be a little bit nicer to Carson, I think, moving forward. So many people are so quick to throw arrows at this kid, and all he did was put his car where there was available space.
Right.
And Ryan Blaney came down across his nose. So watch the replay, guys. I know we all have our biased opinions, but we gotta be fair across the board, whether you care for the driver or you love the driver or you don't. That was on Ryan Blaney. He caused his Penske teammate Joey Logano to wreck out of that race. We start getting into the meat of stage 3. Martin Truex blows his tire, spins out, causes another random caution that they probably weren't expecting. Then we get a massive wreck on the restart. Takes out Bowman, takes out Hamlin, takes out John Hunter Nemechek, who actually was leading the race. I mean, he was putting on an absolute show out there for us. Love seeing a new car, a new number out front. I don't care who it is. It's cool to see these guys leading these laps, because at the end of the day, these guys have fans and these guys have family just like the rest of these teams. And it's really awesome to see your family and your favorite driver out front. So hats off to Legacy Motorsports and everything that they're doing with their Toyotas. Partnering with Jimmy Johnson obviously was not a bad move. They're trending up, and they're trending up pretty decently quick.
Yeah, if you recall the last episode, I told you it seemed like they found something at Pocono.
Right.
That with speed, they were actually competitive on the speed charts, and it's been a while since we could say that about Legacy Motor Club. So, hats off to them. And John Hunter Nemechek, it was no fluke. He deserved to be up front last week. He was doing it on speed, and not just because of strategy. I mean, they played their strategy well too. I feel like
their strategy got them up front, and they were fast.
I feel like they had a great day taken away from them, unfortunately, with that incident on track. But just
and what a massive hit! I mean, those boys took John Hunter Nemechek. If you watch that replay, and I'm a sucker for diagnosing and breaking down these replays. He absolutely smoked that inside wall. You can actually see that concrete wall move several feet. It didn't just hold still. So it's actually the good thing for John Hunter that the wall moved, but that's the amount of force that he came across. And then he comes back across into race car slamming into him and catches the outside wall. So I'm just glad everyone's okay from that. These next gen cars really seem like they've gotten better as the few years have gone on as far as safety and concussions are concerned. I don't remember if it was you or someone else that brought up Alex Bowman during his when he came out of the care center, and they said, I didn't catch it, but they said that he looked a little slow. He looked a little dazed. Maybe he was still trying to unpack everything that had just happened in that wreck. But hopefully everything's all right with Bowman. We haven't seen anything pop up on NASCAR.com about an injury or a concussion. So hopefully he's okay. The fact that it was brought to my attention, and again, I apologize. I don't remember who did it or who said it, but that was something I wanted to discuss, and just something we'll keep our eye on the next couple days. So that takes us to Brad Keselowski, and they showed the chart before the restart. He didn't even you couldn't even see red on his fuel gauge on that graphic that they showed us. Everybody else had yellow or, just something above that. But Brad was on fumes. Brad ducks down out of turn 4. He follows that pace car like they're testing pit road speed. Literally, he follows that pace car into pit road. And I want to shout out Brad Keselowski for making that decision. How hard it must have been to relinquish the race win or a chance at the race win because it feels like your car is going to run out of gas. He probably saves 10, 12 cars from wrecking behind him on that restart.
Easily. Yeah, right. It could have been Nashville all over again.
Exactly. So hats
melee,
off to,
of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% hats off to Brad K. Just for handling that situation as a true veteran, as a true Hall of Famer of the sport, because that could have gotten real ugly, and it probably would have taken a few potential race winners out of that race. I bring up Brad making that because I need to get your opinion on Kyle Larson immediately rolling forward from the 3rd spot into the pole position, if you will, for that restart. I want to ask this question very delicately because I'm not one for hypotheticals, but we kind of need a hypothetical here as far as NASCAR allowing that race to go green when the entire inside row has now been gifted a free position. Do you think NASCAR should have thrown a caution to get everything correct in that instance? And Ryan Blaney being very upset and using some very choice words, along with colorful terms, he actually called out NASCAR's golden boy, if you will. Now that's not my words. I'm not referring to Kyle Larson as NASCAR's golden boy. I don't really care for those types of opinions. Kyle Larson has earned his status as a top-notch driver, but Ryan Blaney did not agree with that situation. From the telemetry, it looked like both of them seemed to have fired off at the same time. But did Kyle Larson's little roll forward kind of help him get that lead that he got at the beginning of that restart?
So here we go, because this is where the race just totally turns into a different day for a lot of things. I mean, the next 30 minutes of racing or whatever it is, is just wild. So let's talk about Blaney for a second, because Blaney, he's notorious hothead. He could fire off some things here or there.
He's very passionate.
He's very passionate. And you know what? He's a champion in the sport. He's earned the right to be vocal. And I'm going to, I'm not a Ryan Blaney fan. I'm not, here to, praise Ryan Blaney. But what I am going to say today is that I actually kind of agree with him. Here's his quote, though. So let's talk about this for a second, because if you didn't hear it, and I'll censor it, but this is word for word what Ryan Blaney said in this moment. There's no way that this should go. Oh, sorry. Here we go. There's no way they should have let this go green. That's ridiculous. They just gave it to him. It's effing over. I'm on the top. I'm not going to win from the top. They gave it to effing Golden Boy, son of B. So there's some
very passionate words.
Very passionate words in the moment. But and to summarize, I've seen NASCAR wave off a restart for less. This is an instance where you're, X amount of laps to go in the race. Passing is at a premium. Now, at this point, to be fair, if you were watching, we did watch the 5-car have to drive through a lot of cars. Okay, so it seemed like the 5-car was able to pass a lot of people. It's on a different strategy at this point. He has newer tires and more gas than anybody else in the field, except for the 45 car. They were on that same following up, and we'll get to the 45 in a second. But at that moment where Brad's peeling off and they have not entered the restart zone at all yet, NASCAR could have easily said, hold up, because I feel like the lines get blurred here. If the 6 car is the control car, and he's supposed to be the one to dictate the restart in the restart zone, he peels off well before the restart zone. That now should be going to the 12 car.
There should be his control to the 12 car.
That should 100% be going to the 12 car, which means, in my opinion, that the 12 car should get to choose where he wants to line up. And in an instance like this, you're racing for a win. I feel like NASCAR needs to revisit this rule. And this is something that they should look into going forward, because this shouldn't happen. It's a crown jewel event. You're racing for a win, and you let a guy who's in third, fourth-ish, just depending on lane choice, where he was before the caution. But, when you go through the choose, that could give you a position, give you, plus minus a row. And if you're listening to strategy, drivers are even talking, well, so-and-so's got X amount of fuel left. He may run out. You might want to line up here. And people were sometimes willing to give up a row to line up where they thought it might be safer, so they didn't get plowed into like a Nashville instance. They're all thinking about these things. So in this sense, the 12 car, he had the gasoline, so it's not like you're worried about him running out on this restart.
Right.
Um, I really do feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick, and I agree with allowing Larson to roll up, and then not only is he rolling up, but when they did enter that restart zone, before they got to the start finish line, in my opinion, and
That's not an
I think
opinion. It's a fact.
okay,
Kyle Larson got there first.
Carl Larson got there first. So,
That's a
and
fact.
and if the 12 car is the control car, you're not supposed to pass before you cross the start finish line. So, for those who aren't familiar with that rule, that is the rule, and that would be considered passing. Now, I've seen some arguments. I've read the opinions across the internet machine yesterday and today, and the opinions are all over the place, and everybody has one, and that's fine. And I am not for or against the 5 car. I am not for or against the 12
Right.
car.
I'm
I don't.
for a fair race.
I'm for fair, and I want. You brought up this term. NASCAR is consistently inconsistent, and we got to eliminate that. And that's why I feel like they really should. This should be a race where we got to clarify this rule and make sure this never happens again.
Right.
Because really it dictates the end of this race. Now another caution does come out after this restart, but Larson is now the leader, and he is now the control car.
Which he was gifted.
Which he was gifted. There's no two ways around it. And now I'm having a brain fade. But did we have 1 or 2 more cautions after this?
I think we had
2.
1 more after that.
One more, and then one more that.
Final.
We'll get into that then.
We'll get to that final caution. So Blaney. We all listen to Blaney have his concerns with the restart. Okay, we're moving on. Because like a lot of things in NASCAR, you have to have a short memory. One of my favorite quotes from Ted Lasso is "Be a goldfish." 10-second memory and move on, because it's not going to do you any good to worry about it anymore.
Right.
So pull your belts tight, grab your steering wheel, and let's get after this next one. On the next restart, now this isn't in our notes, so I think it's just the next restart. Kyle Larson absolutely scorches and gets a
good jump,
probably about 5 or 6 car length lead on the field. Reddick's there. He's got the car. And we've already seen Reddick's car handle and perform better than Larson's car. So he might have a chance with 6.5 turns left in the race to catch him or at least put on some sort of exciting finish.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick had to get around the 12 car.
He had to get around the 12 car.
And he did, and then he was mowing down the 5.
He was absolutely. And so now I am a 45 and a Tyler Reddick fan. You, sir, are a 45 and Tyler Reddick fan, along with Christopher Bell.
It was a good day for me. 2 and 4.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got 2 and 5, and Ross ended up 15th after a busted strategy. So that wasn't a terrible day. But that aside, and then I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Reddick, we were talking about how Xfinity was able to pass and put on a show there at the end of that race, and the way Riley Hurbst was able to not only pass Cole Custer, lose that spot, and then come right back and pass Eric Almirola. I genuinely feel that Tyler Reddick had the same opportunity to do the same exact thing given the circumstances. And I genuinely feel, and I don't hate using this term, but I don't use it often, but I feel like NASCAR fans were robbed of what could have been a very beautiful finish to this race. And we're going to elaborate on why that happened, why I feel NASCAR fans were robbed. The number 41 of Ryan Preece, unfortunately gets caught up in an accident, smacks the inside wall, has flat tires, is unable to get that car rolling, whether to a safe spot behind a wall there on the back straightaway, or just in general, just keep the car rolling. So we have a 3,500 pound piece of debris sitting on the back straightaway. Right. And if you've watched enough races like we have, every single one of us is looking at the top left to see if that pylon on the screen is going to turn yellow because there's a car stopped on the track. We're going to get an overtime, and Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick, the 2 fastest cars on the racetrack, are probably going to go side by side for 2 full laps and come out of turn 4 for a photo finish. That's just how good they were together.
Right.
Instead, let's get our stopwatches out. 32 seconds go by. So they get from turn 2 all the way back around to turn 1 before they throw that caution flag. NASCAR rules states that in overtime, if the leader takes the white flag, the next flag ends the race. That is NASCAR's rules written word for word. They had 30 seconds to throw that caution in hopes of giving the fans that showed up and waited through the red flag and their hard-earned money put into coming to watch this crown jewel event. They watch all these cars circle around the track, come all the way back, take the white flag, and then NASCAR's like, okay, let's throw a yellow flag now that the leader's gone back around, and that 41 is still camped there on the back straightaway. I gotta know your feelings on it, man. I know a lot of people listening. That's been the talk of the race. Is this we've gotten ghost cautions for how long in this series? And you're going to put like I said earlier, a 3,500-pound piece of debris, a full-size stock car stopped on the racetrack, and you're not going to throw a caution. And then Kyle Larson comes across the start-finish line, and then you throw it. It really was a bad look as far as what Ryan Blaney said in the golden boy of NASCAR, and then allowing that to happen not even 5 minutes later. Let's unpack it, man. Tell me what you think. Why did NASCAR not throw a caution?
I wish I could give you the answer. I mean, we've heard what they've tried to tell us, but let's again consistently inconsistent.
Correct.
I am thinking back to how I felt at that moment Sunday. One of my guys was in contention for a win. Now, if I take the homerism aside, I pull for Tyler. Good guy. And I thought that car was pretty elite all weekend. However, in this circumstance, we can even rewind a few laps prior, where Tyler had to ask his teammate, or I'm sorry, his spotter, "Am I racing the 5?" Like what? Like that information should have been fed to him. So
Right.
And while he's doing that, Kyle puts a move on him that he was able to use. I don't know. Larson figured something out. He was able to pass a lot of cars in the how he was setting them up and putting them down. So hats off to the 5 car for doing that. Kyle Larson is an incredible race car driver, and we're not debating that today. We're not debating that today. We're not debating that at all. He's a champion in the sport, and guy could win in anything you give him that has a steering wheel. So
there is no discrediting Kyle Larson's win this weekend.
No discrediting him, but I don't think that for a moment there should not have been a caution in that instance. We'd seen cautions for less, even as far back as a spin in Pocono last week, and then the driver got going right away, but they threw a caution like mid-spin. Like he didn't even hit anything yet. So I think how other series handle this sport, and you and I talked privately about this in the heat of the moment and just a chat back and forth to each other.
I gotta go back and delete that chat because I was a very unhappy customer when that went down. But
right, and we have the right to be, because and I've even been as bold as thinking NASCAR should make caution laps not count.
Correct.
Because
especially the amount they're turning lately.
Right, and what you as a consumer pay to see this product, you want to see a green flag finish, you want to see as many green flag laps as possible, and not have them eating up all these laps under caution like they do sometimes. And it's annoying because at times you're like, come on, let's get going. I think of Chicago, the end of the race at Chicago, we were having caution laps. And it's like, yep. You knew the race was going to end at a specific time because of the darkness right. rule. And yet we're riding around here under caution. It's like, come on, let's go. Throw the green flag. I want to see this play out and see if some of these guys on fresh tires can get through the field. Well, in this instance, I wanted to see if the 45 car could catch the 5 car, and what could happen if we stack those two. They were really good cars throughout the entire. What's going to happen Are they going to get into each other? Is, Blaney going to steal the lead back because those two like, who knows? And like you said,
The
we
storylines
were
are
robbed of
endless.
potential. The potential was there to set up for, hey, welcome back to the Brickyard. Boom, what a finish. Instead, we're ending another crown jewel event this season under a yellow flag condition. And that's the disappointment now. And I said, what can NASCAR do? Okay, so I'm not going to just sit here and complain about it. I'm going to try to bring a neutral, unbiased
Insight.
Hey, here's an idea. Okay, what do other series do? So our winner this weekend, Kyle Larson, he's very familiar with running dirt. Okay, he whoops on the dirt tracks. Guys that I follow, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, the dirt drivers, they're very familiar with this rule. Caution laps don't count. And as soon as a car spins around, guess what happens? The yellow flag's out because it's a safety issue. It's a hazard. Now,
Right.
I get it. A dirt track is a lot smaller. Those cars have to be push start a lot of the time, especially if they get spun out and they're going the wrong direction, and it can create a big mess.
It takes a little bit to get going on those.
Yeah, but you know what? One of these next gen cars gets a flat tire,
And they're stuck.
and they're stuck too. So I mean, it's hard to limp around on those things, as we saw with the 41 car, and just in the position where he is. And then when he did try to, I think he put it in reverse. When they did whip around and come back down the backstretch where Priest was, he was really blocking the track at that point. He wasn't down by that wall where he had spun out to. He did putter backwards a little bit and actually came back up onto the racing surface. So if you are going to not call a flag, then somebody's got to get on the radio and tell Priest to stay put and not try to move his car, because it's a safety issue tenfold then at this point, because NASCAR didn't want to throw yellow. Priest is trying to get going, and it really took away from what I feel could have been a really exciting finish. And again, just comes back with NASCAR just being inconsistent with these finishes. I am not alone in how I feel about how this weekend played out. People are going to say, "Oh, well, NASCAR's golden boy took the lead, and they wanted to make sure he took that white flag." And I'm not going to go there. Okay, let's not go there, guys. We don't need to go there.
That's a little heavy. That's more on the hater side.
Yeah, that's but at the same time, we didn't need to do that either. We could have easily, thrown the caution right when that car spun around and hit the wall. Throw a caution flag, re-brack them. Guess what? We're going to try to end this and do another overtime. We have overtime for a reason, right?
Right. That was exactly what I said. Right? I was like, why did they implement overtime? I'm pretty sure I texted the group, our group, and said, why did NASCAR invent overtime if they're just going to ignore this? That doesn't make any sense to me.
0 cents.
Normally, being as active as I have been on some social media, I'm going back and forth with fans, and I try and avoid the hater comments, and I actually try to engage with fans that are bringing actual opinions and actual thought process and stuff. Engage with the haters, you're just going to get annoyed and frustrated, yada yada yada. But as far as the term "where there's smoke, there's usually fire," and the fact that Kyle Larson had that lead, and the fact that NASCAR had all the information they needed to have to throw a caution at that moment, and they still didn't, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on NASCAR's part. It doesn't look good that Kyle Larson is now leading in wins with 4 over your William Byrons and your Denny Hamlins. And I think there's another driver that might have, is it Christopher Bell that has 3?
Christopher Bell has 3 as well. Yep.
Right. Last but not least, but Bell with his 3 wins, it was a really, really odd situation that it felt like slow motion when Ryan Preece spun out, and we're all just kind of sitting there waiting for the caution to be thrown. And I think I even had time to pick up my phone and text y'all before the caution was thrown. Like, are they going to throw, that's it. If I was a fan that paid money for that race, that would be frustrating. Now I'm still going to spend my money, and I'm still going to go to races and buy the tickets and buy the merch, but that doesn't mean that other people will too. And you don't want to purposely point people away from your events if they think this is a possibility of how it's going to end. And I think it's important for NASCAR to hear a lot of our voices, because we don't need to lose fans, especially in an era of 2024 when the sport is this resurgence that we're experiencing in the sport is really magical. No, it's nothing like it was in the early 2000s, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was 5-6 years ago when Bristol couldn't even put 10 people in the stands, So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think NASCAR took a very, very teeny tiny step backwards as far as the way this event played out. And we're still going to get to Kyle Larson and his victory, because he needs his flowers. He kissed the bricks. He has the trophy, and he's going into the break with 4 wins. But as far as NASCAR is concerned, just do a little bit better, guys. I mean, y'all had every bit of information you needed to throw the caution and do this correctly, and you still chose to do it incorrectly. And I think that's messed up, for lack of better.
It is what it is. You call it exactly for what it is. And I can tell you that both spotters on top of, both spotters for, Tyler Mond for Kyle Larson, as well as Tyler Reddick spotter, both fed them the information that we're expecting a caution. And Kyle's response was, okay, because he was disappointed hearing that there's probably he's like, okay, but like they were both given that information. The spotters were on it, and they're waiting, and nothing. So crickets,
yeah.
NASCAR.
Yeah. It's
okay.
really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that, it's one of those things that I'm okay with things happening if that's the way they were meant to happen. But in this instance, this could have been avoided, and they didn't avoid it. And so now everybody's having conversation about it. That's what's going to generate the clicks. That's what's going to generate the views on social media. It really hasn't been, other than Kyle Larson fans, it really hasn't been much about Kyle Larson's victory. It's been about the botched caution there on the back straightaway. And sure. I don't think that's the intention that NASCAR wants to bring when they're going through this growth process.
No, ultimately not. But, it happened. So we are going to talk about it because it happened. And, there's the hypotheticals too. I've seen so many, and it played a good point was NASCAR worried about the following caution, because how many cars were about to run out of gas? Right. And, it's like, but again, as a fan, as a spectator, that's exciting stuff. That brings in an element of unknown that, and it plays into the finish. And as a spectator, I tell you this right now, one of my guys, Christopher Bell, he did run out of gas, but he was able to maintain pace under caution. So he kept his 4th place position, but he wouldn't have finished there had they had to re-rack under a caution, because he would have had to come in and get gas. And a lot of people were running out or going to run out. So the entire finishing order could have been way different, which also affects the playoffs. Let's be honest.
The playoff points, all of that. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I think you mentioned Christopher Bell running out of gas once the race was over. I believe Bubba Wallace, who finished in 5th place, he ran out of gas. And I think Kyle Busch was nice enough to give him a push all the way back around the track instead of leaving him stranded. So really cool to see the sportsmanship there. We've never really seen Bubba and Kyle tangle ever since they're running I believe it was at Watkins Glen, where they're running into each other down the front straightaway, and Bubba says, "Enough is enough. I'm spinning you out." So that's really the only time we've ever seen any dust between those two. So I appreciate good sportsmanship. Every single driver could have left hanging out on the track and waiting for a push. Kyle went ahead and took care of it. That was good stuff. Speaking of Kyle, let's get into Kyle real quick, Ryan. Another promising day with what looked like Kyle was going to probably reel in a top 10 maybe, and get some sort of momentum into these last 4 races before the playoffs. And he drives it in a little bit too deep. Denny Hamlin cuts in just a half a lane, and probably not expecting Kyle to come drifting up. That's not really a Kyle Busch mistake. And Kyle comes drifting up and spins himself out and puts him in the wall. I think he finished 25th on the day. He did finish running, so he did avoid the DNF. So whether he did it on a bit toe link or not, Kyle Busch, is he getting to a point where he says, you know what, this one's a wash. Let's put all of our chickens into next season and figure out what we're doing there? Or are they still fighting? Are they still pushing for a playoff berth? If let's say Kyle Busch does get a win, is that even enough to make a difference in the first round of the playoffs? Is he, and excuse me for my Austin Cindric fans, but is he going to Austin Cindric another playoff spot?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some playoff spots remaining, and actually, with Kyle Larson's win this weekend, um, there won't be too many drivers. There's 16 playoff spots.
Right.
There's
So
not
no
enough
matter
races.
what,
There's not enough. So if you win, you're in. You don't have to worry. Like, like it's legit. You win, you're in. And then there's guys that will have to worry about pointing themselves in because we got 4 races left of this regular season, and yeah. So the math is the math. Kyle Larson gets that win, eliminates the chance of having 17 winners and a winner not
potential
making it
winners.
into,
Right.
yeah, not making it into playoffs. So Kyle Busch is 112 points out from the cutoff.
Man, that's 30. That's
Yeah,
about 20, 30
that's
points a race.
yeah. So points are no longer his friend. That's
Right.
just it doesn't matter. He needs to go out and get a win. I believe there's some tracks that he can possibly do that. And it's not that they haven't been running good. He's been running in the top 10 when these accidents have happened to him lately. It's just, I don't know. It's crazy. If it wasn't for bad luck, he's having no luck at all right now. It seems like because just, it's wild. I know we talked about it last week too, and then it happened again. I'm like,
Right.
whoa. It's like you got to be kidding me. It's like that's probably what he's thinking too. It's like what more can the guy do except go out and try to run his butt off and hope for the best? And like I think you mentioned last episode about Daytona might be his best shot.
Right.
RCR typically shows up with a good plate package. They have struggled on the short tracks lately, especially the flat short tracks. But typically, historically, in Kyle Busch's career, he runs well at Richmond. He ran decent at Richmond, I think, earlier this year. But historic Kyle Busch is with JGR, who has a really good short track package at Richmond. So, and he's not driving that equipment anymore. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with Richmond after the break? But I don't know. Hopefully they can hit the reset button and just come out the next 4 weeks and see what happens. But I know you have a guy like Martin Truex Jr. He's plus 108, so he's probably he's in the complete opposite of situation of Kyle Busch.
Right.
He's going to have enough to point himself in.
Right. Martin's probably going to be safe unless he ends up one of the non-winners and we randomly get 4 other winners in the last 4 races. The likelihood of that happening, I would probably put it below 5%. As far as the season in competitiveness, and thank you for elaborating on Kyle Busch. As far as last season or the season before, where we saw, 19 or 18 different winners. So we were seeing guys with wins not make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. No. I definitely think we'll get one more oddball winner. It's just that's just my guess. So that's going to push it down to 3 drivers getting in on points. We're looking at Martin Truex Jr., like we said, is safe. He's probably going to have one of those spots unless he just DNFs the next 4 races for whatever reason. You got Ty Gibbs, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher safely in the playoffs right now. But I know this is going to cringe.
I wouldn't say safe for Chastain. He's only plus 7 on the cut line, and he's got.
What I mean is, if the playoffs were to end today, he is right.
A hot and consistent driver chasing him down in the 23 car, Bubba Wallace.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing up Bubba Wallace in that 23 car. And what I meant by safe was, if the playoffs were to start today, Ross Chastain is on the plus side of the cut line. He is by no means safe in the playoffs. Let's get that out of the way. And like you said, you put it perfectly. Bubba Wallace is getting hot, man. Bubba Wallace is getting hot, and he's getting hot in a quick hurry. And he doesn't seem to be getting in his own way, and he doesn't seem to be getting in other people's issues that they're creating for him.
Which has been a big issue for him in the past, is getting caught up in other
100%.
people's mess. Yeah.
100%. So it will totally change the dynamic of the playoffs. We saw Bubba Wallace in that 23 car make the round of 12 last year without a win. I mean, the guy is consistently racking up points, and it looks like he's doing the same exact thing. Now, Bubba kind of does this thing where he gets his back up against the wall, and then all of a sudden he flips the switch, and he's running top tens for multiple weeks in a row, putting himself in contention for a playoff spot. Give me your opinion. Does Bubba Wallace make the 2024 playoffs once the regular season is over?
If you're putting me on the spot right now, I have to say, because of how the team is performing, absolutely. Last week I said, why not? Right?
Right.
Does Bubba Wallace make it? Why not? Why can't he? Because the math was there saying he could. And then you get misfortune from some of these guys that he's chasing down. We've had Ty Gibbs blow an engine the last 2 weeks,
Huge.
which took a big hit into his points. Now he's plus 42.
Yep.
So that's 2 races that could be flipped. Chris Buescher's only plus 17 from the cut line. And he had a bad misfortune at Indy as well, with mechanical issues. So,
it's playing into his favor.
23-11 as a whole is on fire right now.
Correct.
I mentioned last episode about Tyler Reddick and how, if you put points aside, he is number 1 P1 as far as best average finish in all of NASCAR Cup Series right now, and he only bettered that average finish this week with a second place, the bridesmaid. I love the quote he put out on social media today. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I chuckle because, for those who don't know, him and his longtime fiance Alexa De Leon are getting married in this Olympic break. So pop the cap, and congratulations to them on their nuptials coming up. That's really exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
So he'll get to kiss the bride, which is probably the biggest win of his life anyway. So, congrats to Mr. Reddick and the soon to be Mrs. Reddick, Alexa.
Tyler's about to have himself a good break, man. He's gonna get married. He's gonna have a honeymoon, and he's locked into the playoffs. I mean, he's riding high right now.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, while we're giving flowers on the nuptials, congratulations to amigo Danny Suarez as well. Also tying the knot this weekend. I think they were going out of the country for that wedding. So yeah, that's again. So Olympic break, and two of our drivers are getting hitched. So in the series, so that's fun. That's great that they're able to utilize the rare off weekends for themselves to go have some fun. I know the Bells were planning a big family vacation as well, so they deserve it. These guys are these guys are away from
breaks.
now they're away from their families a lot. They really are. People don't realize with the travel and then they get back, and then the demands of the team, their work is different than the typical 9 to 5. So. Yep. I hope they all have fun the next 2 weeks. But getting back to Bubba, I just don't see it not happening at this point. And if he gets in, of course, there are tracks that favor him. I do want to point out that in the couple of years past, Daytona was the last race to set the field for the postseason. Yeah, that is not the case this year. It's actually Darlington, which used to be the first race in the postseason. Man, Darlington, the way Reddick's running, I kind of wish as a Reddick fan, I feel like that track owes him one right now. I mean, he's just been so good there. I kind of wish that was the first race to start the playoffs for him, because he'd get off to a good start. But who knows? Maybe he'll get another win going into the playoffs with the Darlington.
That's what I was thinking. Another win wouldn't hurt going into the playoffs either.
But the 23 car is also really good at Darlington, as well as the 11. So some of them Toyotas run really, really well at Darlington. The 5 is also.
And we keep in mind that we still got Daytona, which both of those 45 and 23 runs really well at. Tyler being a direct product of that, getting the win back in, I I believe it was April, if I remember correctly, the end of April. His lone win, which should probably be up to 5 by now, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely look out for 2311 and Bubba making that strong push towards the end of this season. Now he's got a couple weeks off to kind of unpack a lot of what happened leading up to this point in the season. Ever since his fine, it looks like it almost seems like instead of weight added, it looks like weights lifted off of him a little bit ever since that fine at Chicago.
Just
So
go
whatever.
drive.
Yeah, just go drive your car, man. You'll be just fine.
Yep.
Yeah, we're about to hit our hour mark. We do need to talk about the winner, of course, for everybody that stuck with us. I know we had a bunch to cover on this episode. I really appreciate everyone. Talk to me about Kyle Larson and that 4th win, his 3rd crown jewel now that he has knocked out, a Brickyard 400. He's just missing one. It's that 500.
Yeah. And Daytona is a tough track for him because for some reason Kyle Larson just seems to have the worst luck on plate racetracks.
Right.
There's been times where he has been up front. I mean, let's be honest, he drives for a great team. So he typically has a good car to go right around that track with. Yeah, hats off to the 5 crew. I'm going to just say this, and I've said this to many other people, but I know Kyle Larson had to go out there and pass a lot of cars this weekend to get himself in position to do that. But at the same time, the strategy in the race called by Cliff Daniels on top of the pit box, man, I just, this guy is like a Chad Knaus Jr. in my opinion. He is just so sharp, such a good crew chief, and such a good coach, how he talks, his demeanor to the team, and Kyle, just calm, cool, collected. You never really see his octaves go up or even down too much. He's
Right.
just, he's the consistent voice on that pit box that a driver really could rely on. What is this going to be, the 3rd or 4th diecast version of this race car too? Let's talk about that because we know HMS and Kyle Larson is obviously they're going to sell product. That is
no lie.
He finally got to race this papaya car. He didn't get to drive it at all. I mean, they should change the other versions to put Kevin Harvick's name on top of one of them.
Right.
Justin Allgaier on another.
I saw somebody post on post a meme, and it was Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV when Kyle Larson won in his number 5 orange Hendrick car. He's like, "Hey, that's my car."
Yeah, I mean, it just he finally got to run it, and
he won. Go figure.
Yeah, and he won. Give the guy can drive anything with the steering wheel. Rookie of the year at the Indy 500 this year. He led laps. Our NASCAR guy went into another series and showed kind of took a page out of SVG's book and ran laps up front and went into a different world and did really well with it.
And nobody was surprised. If you were surprised, you don't know racing because I was not surprised. You don't know racing
or Kyle Larson. No, I was not either. I've had the opportunity in years past to chat and meet and chat with Kyle Larson and his family when he ran a dirt race at Grandview, which he parked P1 that day. And pick his brain, a little bit, and just the guy is just glued in, and I mean, he's an aggressive driver. He's going to take those risks. He's going to take those chances, and sometimes it's gonna cost them. But he's going to win more races than he loses that way. So, hats off to the 5 team. They did get it done. I just don't like the way that the race finished. But again, I'm not going to take anything away. Kyle Larson, if I wanted my driver to win the race, Tyler Reddick shouldn't have let the 5 car around him. That's racing, right?
At the end of the day, right.
You don't want to get beat. Don't let people pass you. And
right.
that's the end of the day. That's how it is. Kyle Larson was able to pass a lot of people on his strategy. Again, Tyler Reddick was on that similar strategy with the newer tires, full tank of gas, a lot more gas than those other cars on the track around him had. So they were able to go full burn. and
And it
yeah,
paid off.
just worked out and paid off for those guys. So
Yep. All right, Ryan. Well, man, we got the Brickyard 400 under the belt. It's in the rearview mirror. We're staring squarely down an Olympic break. Honestly, I'd love to run maybe 2 episodes a week until we come back for racing. Maybe like a Monday, Friday type thing, just to kind of keep our viewers locked in and keep everybody up to date on all the news. We probably won't have an hour and 5 minutes worth of material on the next episode, but we'll probably hit that 30 to 40 minute range and just cover what everybody's been doing so far during the break. As far as
hey, there's going to be an ARCA race, so maybe we can watch that and talk about some ARCA racing. You know, because
absolutely,
I got to scratch that racing itch. You know, so I know we have some things planned and some good things coming up for everybody sticking with us on this podcast. I hope everybody continues to watch and tune in because we are trying to cook some things up in the lab and really make this a fun, exciting experience for everybody to have a place to, you know, I say that term, scratch that itch. You know, it's we want to be an outlet for you guys. So leave comments, like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff helps us, helps us help you and continue to do this for you guys. But again, lots of fun stuff coming up. I know that we've been working on behind the scenes, some guest appearances, hopefully sooner than later. So
absolutely, man. I was gonna say Christopher Bell. Ryan, thank you so much for another wonderful episode. Everybody that joined us today, hope you enjoyed Indy Weekend, even though it didn't play out exactly how we wanted it to finish. That's all right though. That's a part of racing. We'll get over it. Yeah, man, we'll see you guys on the next one. This is Side Draft Media with Don and Ryan. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.
See you guys.